Since the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests, a searing light has been shined on police brutality and misconduct. Tonight, we're illuminating the other side, what it's like to be black behind the wheel, what it's like when a car, which for so many is a symbol of independence and success and freedom, is actually a place of fear. Here's News 4's Pat Battle with a story that's an unforgettable ride.
Teddy Vega, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
If you know the game, then you know it's a leap just to make it to that stage. But to take the penultimate ride on The Price is Right is to get this far.
With your brand new car! I want to show you the first number of the price of the car.
And when those numbers light up, what red-blooded American wouldn't feel what Teddy Vega felt? And on his 18th birthday?
This felt like an eternity, just waiting for that number. And as soon as I felt the pause, the extra pause, I knew I had won the car. Yes! It was a phenomenal experience. Oh my goodness. I still can't believe it actually happened.
It was so surreal, so much joy and excitement, and then reality set in.
His mom was in the audience, her hands shaking, she says, as she signaled that last winning number.
3. How about a 3, please? Yes!
As Teddy dropped to his knees, her heart sank in her chest.
I was like, can we trade it for a hot tub? My 18-year-old black Latino son does not need a car. And what's going to be the problems that he's going to encounter?
Make no mistake, for red-blooded black Americans, there's a price to pay for getting behind the wheel. Studies, statistics, and surveys all say that black drivers are far more likely to be pulled over than white ones. They're also more likely to have guns pointed at them by police, to be detained, handcuffed, searched, and arrested.
What's the feeling when those lights go on behind you?
Fear, panic. Am I gonna get home today?
Even in broad daylight, driving that Chevy Cruze through his own hometown, the sight of a police car is cause for concern.
Slow down, slow down.
Teddy and Seti are brothers. Kari is their first cousin. For him, the fear is paralyzing. He doesn't even want a driver's license. At 20 years old, Mom and Dad still take him everywhere.
When I went to high school, I didn't really have a lot of people who looked like me, but they were all super excited to drive. When they hit the age of 16, they all started practicing, and I just never really had that excitement. And when I was really digging deep about it, I realized it was probably because of the fear of being pulled over and then having my life maybe be taken away.
Don't pull it out. He was trying to get out his ID.
Philando Castile, shot dead in front of a 4-year-old child. Maurice Gordon, shot by a New Jersey state trooper after a traffic stop went sideways. And Tamir Rice, he wasn't even old enough to drive. He was 12 when he was shot. They're just some of the names that haunt these young men.
Because, you never know. And, you can dress as nice as you want and be as, look as proper as you want, and you'll still be seen as something less than a normal person or as a threat just due to the color of your skin.
Listen, our lives are in danger, and that's a shame. It's like Teji said yesterday, I can't take my black off. A cop can take his uniform off, put his gun away, take his badge off, but I can't take my black off.
This anxious mom points to the fact that these 3 are college students, the younger ones, graduates of one of Bergen County's most competitive and prestigious high schools.
I wish I could stamp their GPA on their forehead. I wonder if somebody would respect them differently and look at them differently.
Short of that, there's the talk, something virtually every black parent has had with their children, and it starts young.
I can remember back to 3rd, 4th grade, where, I was going to a birthday party, and my dad, he would say, you guys have to remember who you are. You guys are black men in this country.
Rona and Victor Vega started that lesson early.
My basic instruction is that you guys just have to be a little wiser in terms of how you communicate and not agitate the situation any more than it is.
What's the protocol when a cop pulls up behind you?
Make sure your hands are always in view of the cop.
Turn your phone on, turn your voice recorder on.
Make sure you're announcing what you're about to do before you do it, so they don't assume you're about to make any gestures that you don't have the intentions of.
You pass by a cop, and you gotta be extra careful. Tend to make sure that everything's correct, so that if you do get stopped, there won't be a reason or they can't make up a reason.
Well, this is a constant rehearsal. It's not a chapter that's closed. Killing of George Floyd was another page being turned based on the history of this country.
These three are determined to have a voice in that next chapter. They've launched Solidarity Sundays, a bi-monthly Zoom meeting with their peers, parents, and community aimed at sharing, supporting, and strategizing.
My name is Seti Vega, and I wanted to speak to you guys a bit about black economics.
They protested and demonstrated and demanded change.
We've had changes in legislature and changes in the government, and it doesn't change the intent in people's hearts. Like, we were freed, the slaves were freed. That didn't mean they looked at us any differently. We were allowed to go, black people were allowed to go to the same schools as white people, and it didn't really change how they looked at us in those schools.
Processing that truth and their place in this country is a never-ending conversation, but a necessary one for Teji, Seti, and Kari.
In the eyes of almost all Americans, black folks are a threat. In the media, through movies, we're portrayed as, quote-unquote thugs, quote-unquote people who don't have empathy, and that's just not right.
The best way to get them to look is to flood the media that they consume currently with what we're saying, like stuff like this, these kind of interviews, to get them to, I guess, even just look our way. If you change one viewpoint, then maybe that person can change another person's viewpoint, and it's just a trickle-down effect.
I think we'll know that we've really reached a point where this country is not, like, racially prejudiced when young African Americans can not have to worry about wearing a hoodie at night, as where our white counterparts don't feel that same threat. It's the little things that they don't really realize that they have the advantage in where you see the problem. And I think, like, us trying to explain something like that to them, there's a disparity because they can't feel it.
They just want people to feel, David. And I have a 22-year-old son. I could have interviewed him for this project. I could have talked to him 1,000 times and have 1,000 times over, and of his friends as well. Can't wear a hoodie when he walks the dog at night. We've had the talk with our son, and I know, David, yours is much younger, but I can imagine you've already started.
I've already started. It's a little emotional, actually, to listen to them speak. And, a lot of times, Pat, you've heard this. People say, well, if you comply with law enforcement, everything will be fine, as if those young men don't respect law enforcement. But we've seen occasions when you can, and yet you've done nothing wrong, and an aggressive tone, and it just goes south with young people. That's what we worry about as parents, right?
Exactly.
Not having the processing time to kind of take a breath and step away. They're extraordinary, and it's a little bit emotional, too.
I know it's very emotional doing that story, David, and I got to tell you, so many people wanted to be a part of this conversation. I focused on those kids. I've known them, the oldest one, for a while, peripherally, but I knew that they could bring it to light, and it's so important that we continue to have these conversations based on the reckoning on race that we're currently having in this country. It's really critical that we have them, difficult though they may be, and we appreciate our viewers tuning in and listening to this one.
Yep, and we're going to continue this conversation, Pat. The debrief, which we've had for some time, took a hiatus during the pandemic, but we're back, and we're focusing now on these issues of race and bias. Thank you so much for an extraordinary story.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me.